Hello, good evening, leaders. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Tia Ramey. I'm a communications consultant that specializes in social media, and I wanted to give you some tips today on my thoughts as to how we go about canceling cancel culture. There's so much going on. I think that in the news just this last week, we have Whoopi Goldberg, who is enduring a suspension. We also have Joe Rogan, who has a lot of angry fans that are or maybe not fans, but angry people that are upset with him about things that he has said and guests he's had on his podcast. I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on that because there's a big history of those who have been canceled and reasons why. And not to mention just beyond celebrities. Let's just think about the people in our life on a day-to-day basis, associates, family members who have offended us, and maybe we've decided to cancel them one reason or another. Oftentimes we're canceling people because of poor communications. And for a lack of better words, it's poor communications is one way to say it. Another way to say it is evolving communications is how I'd like to see it. Mind you, when people are communicating, there's a place that we're coming from. And I wish that we were also very intentional about the words that we use and understanding why we say some of the things that we say, but we're not. Unfortunately, people are just not that thoughtful, and I'm learning that. I'm learning that as a student of communications, as I'm learning more about the world and I'm having conversations with people and asking them to really question where their words are coming from. And I'm finding that we are making so many micro decisions and responses that are based on sometimes just our history, the environment we grew up in. Our words are not always a reflection of our heart at face value. And what I mean by that is sometimes we're saying things because we're leaning on our intentions, and we hope other people are leaning on our intent for what we meant to say, when we should be more intentional about what it is that we're actually saying and trying to discover what those words are that best communicate our heart, so that way we don't have to be vulnerable to intentionality is a bit of a challenge. But what I will say is that when you're in this process of saying, well, I don't want to be canceled, right? I don't want anyone to cancel me because they think I'm racist, or because they think I'm hateful, or they think I'm bigoted. That really is up to them, how they're assessing you. And if you were the person who was listening to that, you're making a decision as to what bucket you want to place someone in based on the level of words that we've used. But the world has changed quite a bit. I mean, just in the last 5 years, especially in the last 10 years, and we're all growing and we're all evolving and trying to figure out these new landscapes of life. And if I back up just a little bit and talk about language and why we use the language that we use. And oftentimes our language is definitely a reflection of how we see life and how we view it to be. It's a mixture of our survival instincts and what we believe to be true based upon our limited perspectives. And so it's hard to undo that. But we have these new communities that are evolving, that are now developing new words and new definitions, and because they're trying to paint a picture of the life in the world as they know it to be. And that's been an interesting transition, because at the same time that these new languages are evolving and developing, we're also asking the world to catch up quite quickly with learning these new communities and how to communicate with people. And so we have to realize that if we want to cancel culture, number one is understanding the privilege that it is to communicate with another human being, that someone intends to talk to you, and they're talking to you because for some reason they want to be in connection with you. They want to be in proximity with you. And that is really what they want. And we're all in this place where we're trying to figure out what exactly is the truth and how do we communicate it in a way that is productive. And so that's hard to do without the risk of offending one another, especially if we find that our worlds clash, right? So in that process of discovery, just truth discovery, we have to allow people the room and the time to say, hey, I want to hear you out, or I want to hear your perspective. And if we're so quick to shut them down, or we're so quick to cancel them, or to make them afraid of the process of discovering the truth, then you kind of lock them in and seal them into their own opinions. And then what we're trying to achieve with developing these new languages and understanding new connotations and also understanding what is now derogatory, it can fail very fast. And so we can only really cancel culture if we allow each other the room to go in this truth discovery journey together. We have to also be willing to undo some of what we have learned, as well as this world is changing and evolving, especially when you're sitting down with a person one-on-one and you find out that they have been abused by certain words. You have a decision then in that moment, and the decision that you have to make is whether or not you're going to value this human being in front of you more than you value the words that you're used to using. And that's a tough decision to make. And so in this process, when someone is trying to correct you or provide you with new insights as to words that you should use, you have to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to change your worldview or change what you know about life in seconds. And so even though technology has moved fast and we're not really used to being challenged to wait as we used to be, as humanity once was, we're used to processes being slow, and now technology has changed our attention spans. Our attention spans are much faster than they used to be. We do not have a lot of time to really get someone's attention, keep their attention, and make them want to do something. And so that being said, we have to make sure that we come back to being realistic about the human reality and perspective, and give people enough time and room to make changes and adjustments without the fear of being canceled. Because if they're afraid of you and they're caving into what you say, or they're caving in or forced into apologies because they're scared, not because they really truly value you, not because they value your opinion or your perspective, but because they're afraid of what it's going to cost them. If they don't agree with you, then you really don't get agreement at all. We're not really painting the right picture of the world that we want to have, where we're all being bullied into at least adopting the same language, which should be beautiful about life as we're growing in the space of diversity, and how diversity is evolving and shifting, and that word has so many more expectations on it than it used to be. What it should be now is that we are making room for each other's languages. And so that being said, we do have to take into consideration one another's intent first, to see, is someone intending to hurt me? Are they ignorant or are they hateful? And sometimes that's not always the same thing. Sometimes a person does not intend to be hateful, they just don't know any better. And if they allow you the room to correct them and they would like to get on track, I think that those are at least great breeding grounds for, we have a starting point for someone who's willing to actually transform the way they think and change who they are and shift their entire worldview so that they can make room to connect with you. And that should be honored. It really should be respected. That's a process. That takes time, and it may not happen in that one conversation. The question is the willingness. Do we have the willingness to dialogue? That should be honored and respected. Do we have the willingness to listen to each other? Does this person willing to be corrected? And are they willing to apologize? Or are they willing to make an adjustment of at least the way they communicate with you, even if they're not going to change their mind? I think that we're taking that for granted. Those are bigger deals than what we're making of it. And so that's my take on canceling cancel culture. We have to learn how to go down this truth discovery road together, because even what we think we know about life is going to change again. All these words that we're adopting, these new terms that allow people to have a language that empowers them and describes the world as they believe it to be, that will change again too. And we have to make room for each other to expand and grow and discover each other and take it one conversation at a time. And if you don't know what someone's intentions are, it's best to ask them before you react to what they say. And that's the difference between being reactive and being responsive. If someone says something that's triggering for you, you can always ask them, hey, why did you say that? Or what did you mean by that? So this way you can understand, is it even worth your emotions? And so I'm not saying to cancel culture, because it helps people keep their job. I'm saying cancel culture because it's better for your own mental health to not have to go around the world assuming that everyone is out to get you, that sees life differently than you. It's not even good for your mind. It's going to keep you anxious, and you're going to feel like the walls of hatred are closing in on you. And that's really not so. Anyhow, I hope this video was very helpful for you, just to understand how we go about canceling cancel culture, by just taking the time to understand each other, to learn how to be responsive instead of being reactive. Just that one question, what did you mean by that? Understanding that people need time, room, patience to grow and develop, and to check yourself, because patience really truly is for you. It's not for the other person. We always think that patience is for other people. Patience is for you, so that you're not spending your time unnecessarily anxious or frustrated or aggravated or irritated. Patience is so that you can have the peace and the contentment and the centered heart that you need to deal with life, as you are clashing and colliding with other worlds as well, and learning more about the people around you. So hopefully this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. You'll get a lot more of my communication tips and strategies if you read my book, Canceled. It's called Canceled: Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World, where I have a lot of techniques such as the ones I've told you just tonight in this video. So I hope that you will go to my website, tiaramey.com. You can also get it on Audible if you are subscribed there as well. So thanks again for joining me, and we will chat soon.